For Until Saturday, I am David Ubben here with Scott Docterman, and this story of innovation and change is sponsored by Invesco QQQ, the official ETF of the NCAA. Scott, it's bowl season, and the bowls are in a weird place, especially the minor bowls, as the college football playoff has hurt some of them, and then you're going to have the playoff expanding next year to 12 teams. It's hard out here for these minor bowls, but you wrote about Duke's Mayo Bowl, which is embracing innovation and change. The short question is, what have they done to help enhance their status in the world where life is getting harder for minor bowl games?
You know, David, I think part of what Duke's Mayo Bowl is doing, and a couple other bowl games to go along with it, is that they are embracing some of the fun aspects of college football bowl games, almost to like minor league baseball levels. For instance, the Duke's Mayo Bowl, what do we know it for? The Mayo dump at the end of the game.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is. And how many times we'll be doing something else? Maybe, I don't know, in one case for me, I was in another stadium when it was taking place, and everybody's like, turn your TVs to the Duke's Mayo Bowl because they're getting ready to get dumped. And
I remember where I was.
Yeah.
I was in a Pinkberry in New Orleans, in downtown New Orleans, and I was frustrated. I'm still mad at ESPN for moving the first Mayo dump to ESPN Plus. They should move it on to ABC. They should broadcast it in Times Square on the big screen. However, the most amount of eyes we can get on the Mayo dump, we need to.
Exactly. It's fun. You know, you can't really remember, you know, you think about all the bowl games, who's playing in which one. We don't really remember, you know, year after year. You're like, oh yeah, that's right. They were in the Sun Bowl or the Liberty Bowl. And same thing with the Duke's Mayo Bowl, but we can remember Shane Beamer getting hit in the head with the big bucket. And then we can remember when Mike Loxley was getting dumped with a bunch of mayo. And I think that's one. Yeah. And the hat, the giant hat, you know, to keep it off of his forehead. And I mean, I think that's one thing that they're doing to lean into this and innovate a lot. And the other aspect, which is new this year, which I think has probably more wide-ranging consequences, is building on an NIL marketplace in Charlotte, North Carolina, a city that has Fortune 500 companies. And we know that opt-outs are real and they're a problem for bowl games because every team that has NFL caliber players, they're going to start to evaluate whether it's in their best interest to compete. Well, if you have an NIL marketplace, those marginal players who may be low-level draft picks, maybe not even free agents, will now give that an extra thought, which is if you play for North Carolina, which of course is in the Duke's Mayo Bowl this year, that gives you an opportunity to move in and talk to businesses, possibly move on to a commercial for them. Or if you're from West Virginia and you're a business major, then maybe you can link up with a Fortune 500 company, turn it into an internship or potentially even a job at some point. So I think that aspect of innovation is really what's the most important thing for these mid-level bowl games.
What else can they do to help mitigate some of the opt-outs, which have become a huge part of bowl season and makes it, quite frankly, hard to assess what to make of teams when they perform in these bowl games?
You know, David, it's really difficult for these bowl games, especially now with, you know, it's one thing to have 4 teams in a playoff. It's another thing when you have 12 because, you know, with 4 teams, you're going to have some bowl games like, let's say, the Orange Bowl this year, where it may be difficult for some of those players to want to play. But, you know, down the road, everybody's kind of knew their place in the world. But now when you've got probably 20 teams competing in the last 2 weeks of the season for 12 bowl spots, to lose that game will really take away some of that shine. So I think what it has to do is you have to be kind of like the Duke's Mayo Bowl and some of the Cheez-It Bowls and have some fun with it. And again, whether it's a minor league baseball persona or it's simply, you know, the Duke's Mayo Bowl bath, maybe add players to that, do something fun with the game to make it enticing. But then also it's going to have to be a financial reward. And that's going to be the most fascinating part of this, David, and maybe you know more, is that maybe it's a sharing agreement between the schools, the leagues, and the teams, that players are paid for their performance, because otherwise I can understand where if you're a borderline player, do you want to risk your injury? I mean, look at somebody like Jake Butt, you know, played for Michigan and played in the Orange Bowl 6-7 years ago, and he was the Big Ten tight end of the year. never really got his career off the ground, or Jalen Smith at Notre Dame going back to the 2015 season cost him a full round in the draft. So I think that's something else that they're going to have to inspect in the future.
We've seen the Idaho Potato Bowl with the fry dump. You mentioned the Cheez-It dump. I like the idea of getting the foods involved. We had some Toast Angels in the famous Toastery Bowl earlier this week. A lot of toast at the end, which I wasn't prepared for and obviously approved. The Mayo Bowl takes it to another level. The anticipation, the spectacle of the Mayo dump is a cut above, quite frankly, some of these other bowls, even if a coach is getting French fries or Cheez-Its dumped on him. If you are a minor bowl game, do you feel like we have to find a side event to help build up some level of anticipation for our game and make, have a sideshow element to a bowl game that will be entertaining? But if you're not a college football diehard, you might not watch it. Let's give people other reasons to watch this game.
I think it matters for the fans because when you talk about the players and some of their trips, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful thing when these players go to children's hospitals and, they take them to different amusement parks, like in Tampa, you're going to Busch Gardens and all, those are good things. But is that something that a 21, 22-year-old is really focused on? They're focused on other things. So I think having an aspect that's interesting to them and to the fans who may purchase tickets to go to these games and fly, because I think is really pivotal. And the other fact is, how do you promote this? And the best way to me to conquer the opt-outs is to say, this is more of a preview to next year. So if that's a third team, you have a freshman quarterback out there. Well, this is a chance to see this freshman quarterback compete rather than, man, Drake May left this game. I mean, last year, a game I covered in the Music City Bowl, you had Will Levis opt out. And then even for both teams, they were without their starting quarterback, but you had a chance to see somebody else and see other players who stepped in there. And I think that's the way to promote it. And I think fans can rally around that because they still rally around the logo, more so than the player.